Hey, how's everyone doing? I'll be with you shortly. Thanks for being here on your Valentine's Day. Hope everyone had a nice Valentine's Day and hope you took care of your special someones out there. Okay, we'll be starting up in just a bit. I hope you've also had the chance to watch that Ron Paul interview. We uploaded it over the weekend, so it might have caught some of you by surprise. But it was very special to have Ron Paul, and I hope you all had the time to watch that interview. So I'll be with you shortly. Again, thanks for being here, and we'll get it started in just a bit. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Silver Bullion Television, SBTV. This is, excuse me, our live stream. Thanks for being here with us. And again, I hope your Valentine's Day went well. Little bit of a roll call here. Mutant Rev, how you doing? Adam, Dig Asset, how you doing? First time I've seen you here. Welcome aboard. If you are new or if it's your first time here, go ahead and type in new and where you're from, and we'll see if we can acknowledge you. Anthony, oh, that's a tough one. Liwyj Hoddle. Yes, that's a tough name. Max Frost, how you doing? Joshua Robertson, Emperor Bear, how you doing? Edwin Rivera, Peter Schultz, some familiar names. Thanks for always supporting us. Um, yeah, he's praying for a backbone. Yes, he is. Chaz, Call of the Wild, American Rebel, uh, Miss MS Croyd, 99. How you doing? Uh, Carrie Ellen Wilder. Yeah, Valentine's Day was good. My wife, yes, she's a very special lady indeed, and for some reason, she chose to give me this gift for Valentine's Day. It's a Funko doll which I do collect. Some guy named Mister Negative. So I guess maybe all of this negative news that we do kind of rubbing off here. So all in fun. Got me a Mr. Negative doll for Valentine's Day. Pretty cool. Emperor Bear, again, appreciate all you guys being here. Fat Vegan, how you doing? Polynesian Pip, aloha. James Richter, how you doing? Again, thank you all for your support. Robert Carter. And again, if it is your first time here or if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe. Hit the bell to be notified on updates and give us a thumbs up. That always helps us and goes a long way. For some reason, YouTube seems to have been targeting us for months lately, but we're just still going to keep doing what we do. And as always, you can find us on social media. Silverbullion.com.sg is our website where we do specialize in systemic wealth protection. A lot of you already know what's going on, and this is something we need to understand a bit more. And once we understand it, something we got to act on. We can't just think about it because a lot of things are happening really quick out there. Silver Bullion SG is our handle on Facebook. Silver Bullion PL is our handle on Twitter. PL for Private Limited. Audio versions bit.ly, bit.ly, SBTV iTunes, or SBTV Spotify, and Crisis Tracker. Again, as always, join this Crisis Tracker group. If you do have that app Telegram on your mobile phone or even on your desktop, go ahead and join it, and we will post news items and articles from time to time as it pertains to finance, economics, um, and of course, gold and silver. So we do hope you will join us there. Let me run through some comments quickly again. Yeah, thank you for that. It was really special to get Ron Paul. We've been trying, or Dr. Ron Paul. We've been trying for quite a long time, and out of the blue, we got an email saying, they'd be to come on, and so we really appreciated that, and we're glad to bring it to you. So yes, absolutely. The Mick, Tony. Okay, a lot of new faces. So again, thanks for your support and for coming out here, spending time with us. I think there was something came in. There you go. Yeah, Bart, thank you. Appreciate that. Uh, Pair character stretching his arm forward, raising his thumbs up. Okay, Barton Fisk, thank you for that. Really do appreciate that. Robert Nozawa, aloha. Glad to make a live show. Aloha, Robert. Maybe you're from my hometown. I think most of you guys know I'm from Hawaii, so always good to see some people from a home state here. Always be funding Silicon. Hey, could be Silicon Valley. Know you speak the truth, Patrick, and that's why you are being targeted. Well, we wouldn't have it any other way. Truth is what matters, and it's tough enough to decide what's true and what's not true. So we just want to make it simple, want to make it straight, want to make it true because we're no different from you. We need to have good info in order to make good decisions. So we'll just see how all of this plays out. So, having said that, somebody else who is a straight shooter is going to be our upcoming guest. I think a lot of you folks know him, Chris Powell. Chris is the secretary and treasurer of the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, also known as GATA, which he co founded back in 1999 to expose the rigging of the gold market by Western central banks and their investment agent. So we're glad to have Chris Powell back on. Chris is one guy. He's always got great info. He's a straight shooter. He's been in this for a long time, and he, frankly speaking, does explain a lot of things very very well, where all of us can understand it. So Chris, coming up next week. Hope you can make it there. So again, subscribe and hit that bell so you know when this interview does come up. And as always, our ebook giveaway as our way to say thank you. Again, we're going to be giving away William L. Silber's The Story of Silver. It's a really great book. It's the story of silver's transformation from soft money during the 19th century to a hard asset today, and how manipulation, this word is being used so often nowadays. I think all of us can see right through it. How manipulations of the white metal made by American President FDR during the 1930s and by the richest man in the world at that time, Texas oil baron Nelson Bunker Hunt. And yes, this is the same Hunt family that do have ties in with the Kansas City Chiefs for you football fans. So during the 70s, this altered the course of the American and world history. So this is the book that we'll be giving away. As always, house rules. Download that Kindle app for your phone or tablet's app store. It is free. It's a free app. And be the first to answer correctly in this live stream before the timer runs out. You're going to have about a minute and 30. U.S. winners will be given a link to download the ebook. Winners outside the U.S., we're going to have to arrange for an alternative prize. Kindle does not let us gift ebooks outside of the U.S. So not us, it's them. And you're going to have to provide us an email during this live stream. No worries here. My my colleague Vincent is on standby, and he will mute your comment so that way only we will see it and not everyone else. So got to keep things secret sometimes, right? Otherwise, you're going to get a bunch of email floating around coming to you. So no worries on that. Uh, Emails will be kept confidential. So these are the rules, and with that, let's go on to the question. I think this question is going to go by quick, so we're just only going to take maybe the top 5 that get it right, and we'll go from there. So everybody's ready. The question is, William Silver gave a phrase to remember. And what he said was, "Don't fight the blank." William Silver said, "Don't fight the blank." Who was he talking about? Okay, so that is our question for this ebook giveaway. First one to get it right will get his book. The following 4 people will get the book Build Your Own Bank. So let's see the comments. Who we got here? Don't fight blank. It's 2 words. Don't fight blank. And we're going to give away his book. stories of silver. All right, so here we go. Let's see. Answers are coming in. Okay, so we're looking at the Fed. The Fed. Let's see who else. The Fed. Okay, continuing on. What else? Other answers do we have here? It seems a lot of you guys are saying the Fed. I wonder why. Did you folks watch that interview? Maybe you did, huh? Absolutely. Okay. All right. I guess we can stop this one early. We already everybody loaded up on the answer here. So go ahead and give the answer, and I'll let you know who the winners were.
The main factor behind the current rally on Wall Street is an old story, an old adage, and that is, don't fight the Fed. Don't fight the Fed. What that means is, when the central bank is easing credit, buy. When the central bank begins to tighten, sell. This is an ancient idiom in Wall Street.
All right, we kind of gave you an easy one there. It's Valentine's Day, right? We love you guys, so we put out a simple one there, and you guys really got it right. So the winner, let me go over this list here. Seymour Rivers. I think you're the all-time champion so far, right? Getting these these questions right. Seymour River, you're going to be getting the book, the ebook Silver by William Silber. Other winners: News Junkie 3000, Mutant Ref, Miriam Lewis, and Matt LaRoche. You folks were the other four to answer it correctly. First four to answer it correctly, along with Seymour Rivers, who answered it first. So what I'll do is my colleague Vincent, he's here, and he'll contact you, put you on mute. He'll mute your comments, and you can go ahead and give him your email. So again, it'll be Seymour River taking the top spot, News Junkie 3000, Mutant Ref, Miriam Lewis, and Matt LaRoche. So again, Vincent will be getting in contact with you, and then he'll mute your comments, and you can go ahead and give him your email, and then we'll go ahead and send you the ebook shortly after this live stream. So again, thanks for participating. You guys really nailed this one. you really nailed it. Seymour Rivers, thank you. Let's see. Okay, you said the blank, didn't you? I did. Oh well. Like I said, Valentine's Day, we love you guys, so we want to make sure that you get a gift, right? But, okay, so William Silber, the old saying goes, when the Fed loosens, buy. When you think the Fed will tighten, sell. And, basically don't fight the Fed is what he just said. Now, I want to play a clip from our recent interview with Dr. Ron Paul and something that he said.
The welfare state. I talk about both all the time because if anybody complains about, oh, we have too much welfare or we're fighting too many wars, you got to get rid of the Fed because that's how it's financed. It's not financed through taxation, direct taxation. It's through the tax of inflation. And it's worse than it's ever been. And I've followed this very, very closely for a long time, especially since the Bretton Woods broke down in 1971. But there's been nothing like this, even in history, I don't believe, where they take interest rates down to zero, spend endlessly. Nobody can even count the number of trillions of dollars that have been produced in last year, both by appropriations as well as from the Federal Reserve. So it's a system that really bows to a lot of people get the benefit. Not only is it the welfareist, but there's the corporate welfareist, and there's the banking system benefits, and there's also this international organization, and it's a worldwide program of trying to maintain a dollar standard because it's a tremendous benefit to us, but the people who take it, it's a benefit to them too, because we sort of take care of them one way or the other. And that's how the process continues. But the way I see it, it's all going to come to end because it's not a sound system. It's not sound money. So the lack of a sound system and a sound economic and political system is a consequence, I think, very much in the ability of the Federal Reserve and the people to accept a system of unsound money and not even concerned about defining what sound money is all about.
Okay, so before anything else, Miss M. Schroed, Miss Croyd 99. If you can, Vincent, also, if you can, let's get in touch with Miss Croyd 99, and we'll get her email as well. So Miss Croyd, yeah, we see that. Thank you for letting us know. Okay, so on one hand, we have don't fight the Fed, which is true. On the other hand, we have we need to end the Fed, which may also be true. So to hear the case of both sides of the argument, I mean, one can say the Fed, yes, manipulates the economy and therefore manipulates you and me. And because of this, where we truly do not have free markets because of this manipulation, where they throttle the economy back and forth, we should end the Fed, according to Dr. Paul's theory as well. So with this interpretation, I would say both men are right. And here's something else from Dr. Ron Paul.
So there's a lot of people who benefit from having unsound money. And so it's the motivation to keep that system going because that's how the special interests depend on it and benefit from it. And it's broad, it's huge on the number of people. So as long as they can keep the funny money system going, they don't have to earn their money or earn their wealth. It's provided by government of appropriations that you can run up debt, and deficits don't matter. And then they monetize it, and then you have a Federal Reserve that just prints the money as they need it, and they have to cheat and steal because they're devaluing the money, and they have to debase the currency.
Okay, so many people they do benefit from having unsound money. We all know this already. And as long as they can keep the funny money system going, they can run up debt. Deficits just don't matter at this point. They just simply do not matter. And the Fed will print up the money as needed. And as Dr. Paul said, they have to cheat and steal by devaluing the money and debasing the currency. Taxation by inflation. Taxation by inflation. Let me check on the comment here. I think there was something else going on. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Vincent. If we can check on Helsinki, if he was fourth in line, if we can just verify that Helsinki. In the meantime, if you could just give Vincent, or Vincent can mute your comment so we can go ahead and get your email, and then we'll verify if it was in line. So okay, sorry about that. Yeah. So taxation by inflation, and this is what Dr. Paul was saying, and it is true. When we get inflation, it is a form of hidden taxation. And all this leads and will lead us into, of course, inflation. But why? Really, why? I mean, I know we go over this time and time again, but the dynamics keep changing. So much so that I'll put this out here for you. For instance, now we have a former Fed head, Janet Yellen, now Treasury Secretary, and this is only the second time in history that this has happened with the U.S. And the World Economic Forum, along with the IMF, both calling for an economic global reset. Former head of the IMF, now head of the ECB, Christine Lagarde, a former head of the ECB, is now the head of Italy, I believe, which we know was floating the idea of returning to the lira. So somehow all of these bankers seem to all be lining up right now at the top positions, besides positions of central banks. And it seems to me, at least in Europe, the way things are unfolding, they are guarding that euro or whatever else they have planned and look to be taking away every chance or any type of hope or any type of chance that they had of sovereign currencies ever returning. So it does look like Europe is starting to shield up and shore up any type of hope of going back to sovereign currencies. So moving on, I want to go over to our website, silverbullion.com.sg, and see what's going on with the silver price here. In US dollars, we see silver up just a bit, 27.77. Gold, very, very turtle-ish. Slowly moving, slowly chugging along. Nickel, 18,547 per ton. Again, nickel, it's a key component in electric vehicle batteries, and we already know that there is a movement going towards electric vehicles. So nickel is something that we've had our eye on for a while. I think at the beginning, I mean, it's gone up. It's gone up quite a bit, and it's still continuing to move. So nickel is looking good right now. Investor kit. All you need to do is come to the website, click on this, and a PDF will open up, or you can download it for yourself. And I'll give you an example here. So just click on it. You can see it on the website. You don't actually need to download it, but you can if you want to. So again, there are some good topics here. Why buy gold and silver? Tax exempt bullion in Singapore. And of course, why silver bullion? This is a really big question. A lot of people have, and it's something that is coming out more and more. We see it uh, in this popular movement that's going on right now. Um, so a lot of good topics here that you should consider if you are investing in silver. And so we put this together for you. You just need to click on this investor kit here, and you'll see it. And again, storage, sign up. I'll run through this really quick again for you. All you need to do is sign up here, and then what'll happen is this page will open up, and you can see here we have it's actually six different accounts: personal for yourself, joint perhaps for you and your spouse, trust account if you want to, if you're thinking of generational, if you thinking of generational wealth, and you would like to hold things and pass things on. Joint with a minor. This is if you have your child, or if you're a guardian, you can go ahead and open up an account with them. Business account. This is quite popular as well, and of course, retirement accounts, IRA accounts. This is hugely important because for a lot of you guys out there who have 401ks, you do want to start talking to someone. It's not financial advice professional. Otherwise, I'm just saying what I would do. I would be talking to somebody about moving my 401k into a precious metals account, simply because the 401k, it's tied in with the markets. Yes, it's going up, but when that markets go down, or when those markets go down, your 401k is going to feel it just as well. So these are the types of account. And if you want to, creating this account is pretty simple. As I just showed you here, just go online and let's just use personal account. And what will happen here is just your name, little bits of information here, not too much, not too in depth. And after you fill out these things, don't forget preferred currency. We have different currencies here. Do select SBTV. We're at the bottom, so you might have to hunt for us, but go ahead and select SBTV. And again, if you have that IRA or superannuation fund, you can open up a retirement account with us. We can give you details on how to do it. And once ready, you can begin to store your gold and silver with us, and you can also participate in our secured peer-to-peer loans program as a borrower or lender. And these are absolutely good things to have ready to go. I encourage you to do so. The account is free, and having it ready means you can use it when you need it. There is no maintenance fee. So another thing I wanted to look at here on the website, there's been a lot of talk about 1,000-ounce LBMA bars not being available, or short, or just really hard to find. So again, on our homepage, you can scroll down, featured products. Again, we see nickel here. Nickel is doing very, very well. But here you see the LBMA bars. Okay, so you just click on that. You can see that there is one bar in the shop available. If one of you strong guys over in Singapore want to come down and pick it up, just fair warning, this thing is very, very heavy. And we do have 143 bars ready to store in the vault. So I know there is some talk of 1,000-ounce LBMA bars being in a type of a shortage or not being available. I'm just letting you know we do have them here. So again, just as I showed you, you can go and sign up for an account. Once that's clear, you can go ahead and store these with us if you choose to do so. Or like I say, if you're in Singapore, you can come over and pick it up. Got to be a strong guy though. So 143 bars readily available for you. Okay, so I just want to clear that up because there is some talk about how again shortage of LBMA bars. So we have them. We have them, and from what I understand, uh, we can reorder. It's available. Okay, bottom line, it's available if you want it. Okay, so let me take a look at the comments out here. Uh, yes, yes, Mr. Nguyen. I like your name, but Mr. Nguyen, 1,000 ounce bar heavy. Okay, so again, if you want to come down and pick it up, if you're in Singapore, be prepared. It's a monster. It's pretty heavy, and like I said, we do have them available for storage. Okay, so let's see what else is out here. Um, okay, comments wise. Okay, all right, all right. Well, you guys are doing okay. A lot of talk about various topics. Okay, so let's move over to Twitter and see what other guys are talking about. Let's see. Garrett Goggins, CFA and CMT. The comics will settle in cash. That's called a refund in any other transaction. You buy a soda, then instead of the soda, they give you your money back. Silver is going to blow sky high real soon, and this is because a lot of folks are saying comics really just doesn't have the goods, right? So let me share the screen with you folks. Okay, so there we go. So that's from Garrett Goggin. Let's see. Okay, this is from us. Hey, Wonder Twins, Jerome and Janet. Here's your inflation leaking into mainstream. Wonder Twin powers activate shape of a house, form of inflation. And of course, people rushed to buy homes during COVID, during the pandemic, and now they regret it. Let me see if this opens up from Wall Street Journal. Okay. I think we may only get to see a part of it. Let me open this up a bit bigger so we can see it here. So Stella Guan spent months searching for a home to buy, getting outbid. Outbid. Key word here, outbid. It's a tie in with inflation. More money when you have a lot of money chasing a limited supply of goods. Outbid, that's a word for inflation. So she was getting outbid again and again in the white hot real estate market of the Los Angeles suburbs. Finally, her offer on a beautiful Santa Clarita house was accepted in August. She said the graphic designer, 30 years old, paid roughly $600,000 for the house. But after sleeping there for only a few nights, she had an unfortunate realization. I was like, uh-oh, I hate this house, she recalled. I hate this house so much. All right, so 30 years old, and she's not liking her house. Looking back on it, she said, I should have seen all the warning signs, but the pandemic housing fever caught the better of me. A house, unlike expensive jewelry or clothing, cannot be returned if the buyer is unhappy with it. So, a cardinal rule of home buying is that you should not rush into a purchase. But in 2020, millions of Americans did just that. They were fleeing small apartments, buying vacation homes, or simply looking for a change of scenery. And the crushing boredom of lockdowns, and people scrambled to buy houses amid the pandemic, spurring bidding wars. Okay, spurring bidding wars. A lot of money chasing limited supply of products, aka inflation, and supercharging the real estate markets across the country. Now, many are discovering the pitfalls of these hasty purchases, ranging from buyer's remorse to financial strain to damage caused by unexpected problems. Okay, so that's just one story, but it is sort of telling you that inflation is starting to leak over into Main Street. Documenting Bitcoin, I found this one pretty interesting. True story now. The $1,200 stimulus check given to Americans in April would now be worth 9,000 if they used it to buy Bitcoin. Now it's a true story, but others of us, we chose to put it in silver and gold because if you're talking back in April, silver and gold were pretty low when it came, I believe, in March. So silver and gold, if you bought that, you did well also. David Morgan, Putin announces total independence from Rothschild controlled US dollar. And this is coming from Monda's stuff. And we'll just take a quick look at it. And this, I don't think it's going to get very much news, but it's pretty significant. Let me open this up and make it a bit larger so we can see it here. Okay, so let's just read the main points. Coming from Putin, we used to behave naively, but now we see that the World Trade Organization rules are all too often broken. The restrictions are imposed for political reasons, which they call sanctions. Plus, more and more of them are imposed to secure its favorite competitive advantages, says Putin. So let me just read this here. While Putin did not call an alternative currency, it is thought he is against any currency and ending up being a quasi world currency, specifically if that currency is pushed by the Rothschilds International Monetary Fund, IMF, and WTO, World Trade Organization. They said we could not do it. They said we would be destroyed, Putin told personnel and senior associates at an event last year. Our future generations will be born without Rothschild's chains around their wrists and ankles. That is a profound statement. This is the best present we can provide. So Russian Finance Minister Alexei Kudrin likewise spoke at the occasion and applauded Putin's accomplishment in driving the Rothschilds out of the country. They do not go quickly, he said, but we have shown it's possible. I think there's a bit more down here, but I would encourage you just to go ahead and look at that tweet from David Morgan. It's a pretty good article here. Mises Institute reinstating the mark, a peaceful act by a sovereign country, would create a cascade of monetary reform throughout the world. And what they're talking about here is it's just a hypothetical look at if Germany decided to bring back the Deutschmark and back it by gold and the good that it would do. Let me open this up a bit bigger as well. Could a revived Deutschmark save us? There's an option still available to the West, a voluntary abandonment of Keynesian economics and other schools of thought that embrace money printing. Sounds like Ron Paul here. As a solution to economic problems and the linking of the US dollar to its still substantial gold reserves. But what development could move the US towards strengthening its currency voluntarily? Germany. So they're saying, Germany could actually push the button to make it all happen. It's the fourth largest economy in the world and probably the soundest financially. Germany's federal government regularly runs budget surpluses. That's a word you don't hear often. A phenomenon last seen briefly in the U.S. in the 1990s, and before that, in the Eisenhower president of the 1950s. Germany does not rely upon borrowing, much less money printing called monetization, to balance its books. Prior to Germany joining the Eurozone, the Dutch mark of West Germany was the strongest currency in Europe. For decades, it's appreciated gradually against all currencies, including the US dollar. So again, if you can, go ahead and take a look at that. A tweet from the Mises Institute. I wish more people knew about the dangers of a cashless society. Thomas Molinen, a former guest, says he could not agree more. Maybe we have to write a blog about this also. This is also on people's minds here, dangers of a cashless society. And let's see, moving down here. Okay, let's just see one last tweet. Robert Kiyosaki. He says, unemployment president Biden canceling Keystone Pipeline will cost 14 million jobs, plus businesses that count on workers. Raising minimum wage to $15 an hour will cost 1.4 million jobs, and higher taxes for taxpayers. And he says, violence ahead, very, very sad for us all. So those are some of the tweets coming out. Let me take a look at these comments here. I know I've definitely fallen behind in seeing some of these comments. Um, let's see. Uh, okay, Pablo Pina. That's interesting what you're saying. Copper coins even sold out in a few online dealers that I've checked. If it's gotten to that point where even copper coins are sold out, we've really raised the bar here. There's really more than meets the eye going on. See what else is out there. That's an interesting observation there. Okay, so let me see what else is here. Okay, all right, some good topics here. Um, let's see. Okay, all right, I'll continue on here. So moving forward, inflation is ripe, very, very ripe. Something William Silber said about how the Fed needs to have a backbone kind of struck an accord with me. And having a spine comes into play. And frankly speaking, it looks as if they, meaning the Fed, central banks, seems like they don't have that spine to give us that temporary pain for long term health, economic health. And inflation it's in our future. So what I really want to do is go back and take a look at a man who did have a spine, and that man being Paul Volcker, because in understanding what he did, we also understand what perhaps is looming upon us. And again, with inflation knocking on the door and the word backbone and spine, they absolutely come into play. So again, I want to take a look at Paul Volcker, the ex-Fed chairman, who did not necessarily have to deal with the massive money printing that we see today, the massive stimulus that we see today. But at some point, there will be inflation, perhaps even massive inflation, and that is what Paul Volcker magically, methodically, and miraculously what he dealt with. So, who was Paul Volcker? Okay, Paul Volcker, he was a big man, 6'7", 6'7" giant. That's pretty large. So he was the chair of the Federal Reserve. This is coming from thebalance.com. He was the head of the Federal Reserve from 79 to 87, and in 1980, the Volcker shock raised the Fed funds rate to its highest point in history to end double-digit inflation. In 2015, the Volcker rule prohibited banks from using your deposits to trade for their profit. In 2014, Volcker called for a new Bretton Woods. A lot of people calling for a new Bretton Woods up until today, and to establish rules to guide world monetary policy. Volcker fought greater than 10% annual inflation rates with contractionary monetary policy and courageously raised the Fed funds rate to 20% in March of 1980. Now, can you imagine the Fed having a spine to raise the Fed funds rate to 20%? My opinion, they just do not have the spine, the backbone to do it. And I don't even know if people would be able to take the pain that would come along with it. But this is something that Volcker had the courage to do. It's something that the country had the courage to take on. Nonetheless, he briefly lowered it in June, when inflation returned. Volcker raised the rate back to 20% in December and kept it above 16 until May of 81. And that extreme and prolonged interest rate rise was called the Volcker shock. It did end inflation. Unfortunately, it also created the 1981 recession, and Carter appointed him and Reagan reappointed him in 83. Now, why the Volcker shock worked? He knew that he had to take dramatic and consistent action for everyone to believe he could tame inflation. And again, this is looking forward, because with all this money printing coming on, once that velocity of money kicks in, no doubt you're going to see this inflation. So we're taking a look at what Volcker did and his mindset at that time. So President Nixon had contributed to inflation by ending the gold standard in 73. The dollar's value plummeted on the foreign exchange markets. That made import prices higher, creating inflation. Nixon did try to stop it with wage price controls in 71 that restricted business activity, slowed growth, and caused stagflation. Pain. Fed Chair Alfred Hayes tried to fight inflation and recession at the same time as he alternately raised and lowered interest rates. His stop and go monetary policy confused consumers and businesses, and in 72, Congress ended wage price controls. Worried companies just raised prices to stay ahead of the future high interest rates, and consumers kept buying before prices rose even more. The Fed lost credibility, and inflation rose to double digits. And this is why we see Jerome Powell, when he comes out at his FOMC meetings, he has the script of very well crafted words that really try to keep credibility in the Fed. He does not want to move back and forth, stop and go types of policies as Fed Chair Alfred Hayes did. So this is why Powell is very, very dovish. So thanks to Voker, central bankers realized the importance of managing inflation expectations. As long as people thought prices would keep rising, they had the incentive to spend now. The added demand drove inflation even higher. Consumers stopped spending when they realized Volcker would end inflation. Businesses stopped raising prices for the same reason. This kind of goes back to that opening story on Twitter where this woman, she said how homes kept they kept being bid up and up and up. So this again kind of tells you what happened back then is happening now. So in 2008, Obama appointed Volcker to the Economic Recovery Advisory Board, where Volcker played a crucial role in shaping the board as he brought in leaders from both business and academia. Volcker was 81 at that time, and he blamed the crisis on poor regulation of the financial sector. As the board chair, he advocated tougher banking regulations with the Volcker rule. It prohibits large banks from using your deposits to trade for their profits. They can only do so on behalf of their clients. They only can do what you tell them to do. So let me just go down a bit. Okay, so I mean that was some of the things that happened in Paul Volcker's time. So often we hear the phrase monetary policy today, and in that the Fed explains what it's going to do and signals to the markets what's about to come or even not to come. And more often than not, when it comes to monetary policy, it simply means print more money. That's no matter what the Fed tells you, that's pretty much the only trick that they have. The only tool that they have is to print more money. So no matter how the Fed packages up new programs, the root of it all is to, of course, still print money. Let me take a look at some comments here. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Okay. All right. I guess okay. Comments are good. We'll continue on. So monetary policy. What are the different types of monetary policy besides printing money? Because that's really the only thing they have. No matter what they call it, it means printing money to keep credit and liquidity going. So monetary policy. This is from thebalance.com. Explained, including its objective types and tools. I won't go through this whole article, but some key takeaways here are: Federal Reserve uses monetary policy to manage economic growth, unemployment, and inflation. It does this to influence production, prices, demand, and employment. Expansionary monetary policies increase the growth of the economy, while contractionary policies slow economic growth. Three objectives in monetary policy are controlling inflation, managing employment levels, and maintaining long-term interest rates. The Fed implements this monetary policy through open market operations, reserve requirements, discount rates, and the federal funds rate, and of course, inflation targeting. So I just want to go down here a bit. Let me come down and I'll just read this out here. Monetary policy tools. All central banks have three tools for monetary policy in common. They use open market operations, buy and sell government bonds and other securities from member banks. And this action changes the reserve amount the banks have on hand. Higher reserve means the banks can lend less. That's a contractionary policy. In the US, the Fed sells treasury to member banks. The second tool is reserve requirement, which the central banks tell their members how much money they must keep on reserve each night. Not everyone needs all their money each day, so it is safe for the banks to lend most of it out. That way, they have enough cash on hand to meet most demands for redemption. Previously, the reserve requirement has been 10%. However, effective March of 2020, last year, the Fed has reduced the reserve requirement to zero. Zero. When central banks wants to restrict liquidity, it raises the reserve requirement. That gives banks less money to lend. When it wants to expand liquidity, it lowers the requirement. Expand liquidity, aka dump some money in the system, money printing, and it lowers the requirement. That gives member banks more money to lend. Central banks rarely change the reserve requirement because it requires a lot of paperwork for their members. And the third tool is the discount rate. That's how much a central bank charges members to borrow funds from its discount window. It raises the discount rate to discourage banks from borrowing. That action reduces liquidity and slows the economy. By lowering the discount rate, it encourages borrowing, and that increases liquidity and boosts growth. And this is kind of, I believe, this is where we are at. They actually no, I should take that back. They don't want to reduce liquidity right now, and they do not want to slow the economy. So I mean, this is something that the Fed is working very, very, very hard on. And in the U.S., the Federal Open Market Committee sets the discount rate at half a point or higher than the Fed funds rate. Okay, and this is because the Fed prefers the banks to borrow from each other. So that's a little bit of monetary policy. So knowing what the monetary tools are that the Fed uses, which is basically, again, money printing. In times of low to no inflation, what happens when the pendulum comes back the other way and strikes us with inflation? Maybe to be on point here, since by almost all accounts we are headed towards inflation, perhaps even massive inflation, what sparked inflation back in the 70s, and what can we learn from it? And again, this goes back to Paul Volcker, because he had to have the spine to not only see what is happening, but to actually take action on it. So, how the great inflation happened in the 70s. And there are some similarities here where we are today. So, in the 70s, stock market is a mess. Okay, would you say the stock market is a mess? Yeah, I would. It has lost nearly 50% over a 20-month period. And for close to a decade, few people want anything to do with stocks. Economic growth is weak, which results in rising unemployment that eventually reaches double digits. Now, the odd thing here is, yes, the market is in a mess. It's absolutely disconnected with the real economy. But in this case, it was because the market was down. In the case today, it's because the market is disconnected on the upside. But we do have unemployment, and some people do say if you do count energy and food, we would be right about at double digit when it comes to inflation on one thing, but also with the a lot of jobs being lost. Uh, Really, I'm not sure if they even have a true number as far as employment numbers as well. So moving on, the easy money policies of the American Central Bank, designed to generate full employment by the early 70s, also resulted in high inflation. The central bank, once under different leadership, would later reverse its policies, raising interest rates to some 20%, a number one a number once considered usurious for interest sensitive industries such as housing, cars. Rising interest rates caused a calamity. And with interest rates skyrocketing, many people are priced out of new cars and homes. So this is one thing to consider. Again, this is part of the process of pain, short-term pain, in order to get long-term economic health. Key takeaways: periods of rapid inflation occur when the prices of goods and services in an economy suddenly rise, eroding the purchasing power of savings. And we're going to see things getting bid up. 70s saw some of the highest rates of inflation in the US in recent history, with interest rates rising in turn to nearly 20%. Again, this was at a time where the money supply was 6 times less than what it is today, and they had to raise rates up to 20%. So you can imagine where the interest rates would have to go to today. The central bank policy, the abandonment of the gold window, Keynesian economic policy, and market psychology all contributed to this decade of high inflation. It's pretty gruesome. It's a gruesome story of the great inflation of the 70s, which began in 72 and didn't end until the early 80s. So we're looking at a decade. It's not quick. It was a decade. And we go down a bit. This part is also interesting. The great inflation was blamed on oil prices, and we're seeing oil prices rising again. Currency speculators, greedy businessmen, and union leaders. However, it is clear that monetary policies which financed massive budget deficits and were supported by political leaders were the cause. This sounds very much like where we are today. Same things are happening. This mess of proof was what Milton Friedman said in his book, Money Mischief, Episodes in Monetary History. Inflation is always a monetary phenomenon. The Great Inflation and the recession that followed wrecked many businesses and hurt countless individuals. And this we've seen from the shutdown of the economy through the pandemic. And interestingly, John Connolly, the Nixon installed Treasury Secretary at that time, who did not have any formal economics training, he himself declared personal bankruptcy. So again, we are seeing things that happened back then that are happening now. And I want to get to one more point here. Okay, let's see. Winning elections. Okay, let me just find this one spot. Okay, in public and private, Nixon turned the pressure on Burns. Burns was one of his I think someone in his cabinet. It may have been. Sorry about that. Anyway, in this book, Secrets of the Temple: How the Federal Reserve Runs the Country, it reports Nixon as saying, "We'll take inflation if necessary, but we cannot take unemployment." And eventually, the nation had both. And Burns and of the Fed's Open Market Committee, which decided on money creation policies, soon provided cheap money. Okay, so they opened up the spigot there. So knowing what the monetary tools the Fed uses are, which is basically money printing in times of low to no inflation, what happens when the pendulum swings back the other way? Okay, and actually read that part. So let me take a look at some comments here. Sorry about that. Let's see. Jack Parsons, absolutely. China needs oil, and Russia has oil. Russia has gold too. Absolutely, absolutely right there. You see what else? What other comments are out there? Okay, let's just see what other comments are out there. Okay, so moving forward, we have a lot of these ingredients in our inflation cake that will cause it to rise and rise where even Betty Crocker, she'd be proud. Oil is going up. Same thing at the time of Voker. Speculation in currencies and now alternative currencies. Same thing happened in Volker's time. Greed on Wall Street. Same thing happened Volker's time. Politicians acting as union leaders. Same things are happening Volker's time. Now, Nixon's Treasury Secretary did go bankrupt. Biden's Treasury Secretary, well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens with that. But I want to show you a few things from this book, Secrets of the Temple. Let me just bring this up for you. Secrets of the Temple: How the Federal Reserve Runs the Country. Okay, so it's a pretty interesting book, and there's just a few parts that I highlighted here. Now, since its conception, Federal Reserve Bank of the U.S. has been cloaked in mystery and subject to conspiracy theories. It was alleged that the Fed was run by a select set of individuals, Zionists, Illuminati, Satanists, who decided the fate of the nation and indeed the entire world through their control of money. Though many such outlandish accusations came from the fringes of society, even the average person had little understanding of how the Fed worked and what it did. Even in Ron Paul's interview, he said there was something about Kennedy asking, "How do we create money?" Now, the creation of money was done not only by the Fed, but by every commercial bank in the normal course of business, and it was as simple as making an entry ledger. The bank made a loan to an individual or corporation, assessing that the borrowing entity would be able to make repayments, and the bank simply credited the money to their account. Money was created based on a banker's assessment of the future. If a member bank did not have enough money in reserve, it would go to the Fed's discount window and borrow funds, or go to another bank that had excess reserves and borrow from them. The price of this borrowing between banks was known as the Fed funds rate, and it was the interest rate the Fed had the most control over, and the rate that served as the foundation for all other interest rates in the economy. The price of money influenced the amount of credit available to finance real economic activity. The Fed controlled reserves, which influenced bank lending, which influenced the productive capacity of the U.S. and the lives of its citizens. So you can see how much power that they have. And the governors, Reserve Bank presidents, and employees of the Fed saw Volcker's appointment as a long-needed return to normalcy for the institution. So Paul Volcker took the oath of office in August 6th of 79. The Fed had set a growth target of 1.5 to 4.5% for the M1 measure in 79. When Volcker took office, M1 was growing at an annualized rate of 10%. So he began sending signals in his private and public remarks that he would make an effort to tighten up the money supply. At the September meeting of the FOMC, the majority voted to increase the Fed funds rate from 11.5 to 11.75. But it's important to note at this time the full FOMC decided that the Fed funds rate, but 7 governors alone decided the discount rate. So it was separate there. So again, Volcker wanted to take a more drastic step, but moderated his position in order to ensure a majority. So slowly, Volcker was preparing himself and his fellow governors to take such action. So Volcker also was very diplomatic within his own space, within his own arena. And the boom across nearly all markets, real estate, precious metals, paintings, on and on, people were rushing out of dollars and into tangibles, considered a more reliable store of value in inflationary times. Though some worry that more aggressive action could stop the economy in its tracks and cause a recession, outside critics and members of the Fed began to worry that the Fed's moves were too gradual to make a difference. So again, remember, this happened over a decade. So Volcker was convinced that drastic action, an increase of 2 to 3, possibly 4 to 5% in the Fed funds rate, was needed to curb inflation. But he doubted he could cobble together a sustainable majority to vote for such action. I want you to imagine today, is it possible for Jerome Powell to come in and say we're going to raise the interest rates 4 to 5%? And can you imagine what will happen? What will businesses interpret this as? What will the economy take it as? What will the international community take this as? So going forward here, for the next few weeks, short-term interest rates bounced up and down and up again from 11.5 to 18 to 14 to 16%. Though volatile, it soon became clear that the rate was settling at a substantially higher level. Unfortunately, the cost of the Fed's policies fell unevenly on the American populace. This is the part here where how it affects us really. The poorest Americans were least able to deal with the higher interest rates. Individuals and businesses in higher tax brackets could write off a larger percentage of their interest payments, and people in the lower tax brackets paid nearly full freight. Okay, the people had to pay full freight, the lower tax brackets. What can you say there, right? The Fed's policy punished those least responsible for the behavior the Fed found so reckless. And this is the thing where guys on the bottom, they are going to get hurt the most. And this is something that, you know, if if we're a bit thin in the wallets, this is where things again like silver, if you can muster up some silver, muster up some gold, of course, with other important items, food, water, things like that, as Lynette Zhang would say. These are things we need to look at because history tells us it's people in the lower tax brackets that are going to get hit the hardest. So credit became more scarce, but what remained flowed upward. Corporations sought guarantees that their credit needs would be met and that the large commercial banks could give these guarantees. Commercial banks expanded their loan portfolios at alarming rates. Part of the reason large institutions could do this was because they had access to the euro dollar market. Hundreds of billions of unregulated US dollars parked offshore. So later on in February, the FOMC agreed to tighten bank reserves further. The Fed funds rate was hovering around 13% at this time. The governors set the ceiling at 15.5%. 2 weeks later, the Fed funds rate increased to 15%. FOMC met again and raised the ceiling to 16.5%. By March, this target was also pierced. And Volcker again called on the FOMC to raise the target to 17.5%. And the very next day, they decided to raise it again to 18. The reaction in Congress and the White House was surprisingly subdued. Most congressmen had little understanding of the monetary policy and were willing to defer to the Fed. Carter had drawn up his own anti-inflation initiative, but this was drowned out by the course of events. The White House became increasingly worried that a recession was bound to hit before the 1980 election. Okay, so
Right,
hang on.
we
Let me play one more
obviously
clip from.
got these dividers.
Hang on, I'm going to play another clip from Voker coming up, but you can kind of see a lot of similarities, and I think probably more importantly, you can see that being a Fed chairman, it takes a lot of spine. It's going to take a huge amount of spine, very big backbone to do what Volcker did once all of this starts unraveling. And sorry that took a bit of time, but let me go through some comments now. Um, Tony, time to start fattening up your squirrels. Okay, there's a lot of ways to take that one, but okay, all right. Let's see what else is out there. Fat vegan. How do we even fund the new Green Deal, let alone find enough silver to make it happen? Great question. That's a great question. The Green New Deal, I think it's fair to say it's not just the U.S. thing. This is something that it's global. This is something that the whole globe has been working on to position the world to move into to go into this type of renewable energy type of world. And how will they find enough silver? Can't answer that for you, my friend, but I can say that this is where they are moving us to, where they are sort of like shaping us to be able to fit into. Now, Volker, I want to play three clips from Paul Volcker to help us kind of understand where he was at that time.
Right, we obviously got this divisiveness in the Congress, divisiveness in the country. It's makes it impossible to take very coherent, consistent approaches toward domestic problems, but particularly toward foreign policy. And that sense, again, that we are the natural leader, we have certain allies that seem permanent 10 and 15 years ago, don't seem so permanent anymore. It's a tougher situation that we have to accommodate to that makes some emphasis on effective government all the more important in my mind. Who is going to appreciate the United States as a leader if we don't seem to be able to manage our own affairs at home?
It's pretty strong words. Who's going to appreciate or even want the U.S. as a leader if we can't manage our affairs back home? The U.S. is not doing well, both domestically and internationally. And why does it matter? Because it's a reserve currency right now. How can it possibly remain a leader when global confidence in the U.S. it is lessening. Let's just be straight. It's lessening. And new powers, new solutions, new leadership in various parts of the world are on the rise. This is something I think we all know deep down inside. So not only does this affect friendships, alliances, friends and foes, it affects the US dollar, and that's going to affect the economy. Imagine this, just a simple look at it here. If your supplier is in China and your supplier does not want US dollars, you need another currency. Okay? I mean, of course there's more you can do, but let's keep it simple here. You need another currency. A currency your supplier will be happy with. Now, if he doesn't want US dollars and you insist on US dollars, your supplier is going to charge you more. He is going to charge you more, and you are going to see that inflation really starting to kick in there. I want to clip from Paul Volcker.
Interest rates went up to 20%.
More than
And-
we ever expected.
And when you tighten monetary policy like that, it drove the unemployment rate up to 10%, and it caused the worst downturn in that period of time since the Great Depression. And you held tight in that. There were protests, there was anger, and you held tight in that, and you followed it through. And as a result of that, you broke the back of inflation. And in 1983, that inflation rate went down to 3% inflation at that time. And we began a decade of prosperity, of strong growth with low inflation. Now, you had to have a vision of what it was like. You had to fight through that vision despite all the opposition. That's an example of leadership under people now look back and they say that was a great accomplishment. But at that time, that must have been very difficult. Can you describe
Yes,
it?
right.
And then also tell us more about what you've seen to be the qualities of great leadership that you've seen in others as well.
Well, this all happened, fight on inflation, inflation itself, 50 years ago, roughly. And people today, people my age are all dying off. And even middle-aged people with children then. And they may not remember the atmosphere as it was experienced. The inflation rate had gone up for more than a decade. There were kind of feeble efforts to deal with it. During the Ford administration, they handed out buttons, whip inflation now, but it had more buttons than policy. And there was always this conflict, which always exists. Don't tighten monetary policy too far, you'll get some unemployment. So we went a decade that way, and we got more inflation and more unemployment. And when I took over the Federal Reserve, at the end of Carter's administration, President Carter was totally frustrated because he seemed to be unable to take any initiative anyway, because all this inflation was backfiring on it. He couldn't do anything on the budget, couldn't do anything on energy. All these things he would have liked to have seemed to be stalled by this fear of inflation, and it was very real at that time. And so he asked me to become chairman of the Federal Reserve. Well, it was obvious that existing policies weren't working. And actually, I was in the Federal Reserve before that, voting against some of those policies. But I decided we had to change an approach, and we got to stop worrying about increasing unemployment at any time. We got to deal with this inflation, or it's going to get worse and worse, because it was accelerating when it got close to 15% annual rate. And if we pussyfooted much longer, it was going to be 20%. And people were really fearful about the stability of the country. So we did tighten. It took a long while, actually, for the unemployment rate to go up. It was very stubborn, and the inflation rate was very stubborn. And we made one or two false moves we had to take back. It took a little longer than we thought, but I saw no other way to approach this other than kind of a bulldog biting at it straight out. And I got plenty worried in '82 when we did begin getting unemployment, and the damn inflation rate wasn't coming down, and the money supply wasn't coming down the way we wanted. But I felt we were stuck. We we couldn't back off.
Okay. Great comments going on there. Interesting that Volcker said the Fed was stuck. The Fed was stuck. A lot of people here today think the Fed is also stuck. The Fed was stuck and the Fed could not back off at his time. Do you get the sense that this is where the Fed is right now? I mean, the Fed is not going to, they're just not going to back off. Like I said, that money printing press, Jerome Powell is just going to keep cranking till the bearings blow up and start smoking. It's not going to stop. And we see them doubling down, and it looks as if they're going to ride this. They're going to ride it all the way till the wheels come off. In that, pain. Going to be pain. Volcker delivered the pain back in his day. We took it, we got better. We took the pain, and we got better. Powell at the Fed and Yellen at the Treasury, these two together, they are sort of like the Wonder Twins. Remember that cartoon, the Wonder Twins? Trying to shapeshift into anything they can to keep the whole system from breaking down. Sort of makes me think of this.
Well, I guess it's up to us.
Right.
Wonder Twin powers! Wonder Twin powers! Wonder Twin powers! Activate! Activate! Activate!
Shape of an ice ladder.
Form of a mouse! A pterodactyl!
Ice boat.
Basin!
Okay, I know you get it. Come on now, I'm not the only one who watched the Wonder Twins, right? Question was Glee. Anyway, this is who the Fed has become. Shape of the repo market regulator. Shape of zombie company czar. Shape of a supersized printing press. The Fed, this is what the Fed has become. And now with Janet and Jerome, we have the Wonder Twins. Together again, these friends with monetary and fiscal benefits are going to light up the printing press more than any progressive slot machine that you've ever seen in Vegas. So, Wonder Twins, they're just, I mean, really, it's getting to a point, it's almost comical, it really is comical. Robert Carter, and there you go, shape of a wet sponge. All right, so it looks like, who knows what they're going to shapeshift into, but no matter what, at the end of the day, they're stuck as being a money printer. Friends together, right? All right, so moving on.
When you look around at world leaders in recent years, who do you begin thinking of? I think Mrs. Merkel did a pretty good job in Europe and Germany.
We had dinner with Lee Kuan Yew, you and I. You might remember.
Lee Kuan Yew was the next name I was going to mention. And the third name I was going to mention is, I don't know how much you ran into Zhu Rongji.
He's been a hero of mine. I didn't know him personally.
Well, he was a hero of mine. This was in the 1990s when I was to China quite a lot. I don't go to China very little now. And I don't know the leaders now, but I knew the leaders in the 90s when they seemed to be a blossoming capitalist economy, to exaggerate a bit, with hopes for an open democratic society. Doesn't look that way quite now, but back when Deng and Zhu Rongji were there, it looked very promising. And they come to us for advice. They don't come for us for advice anymore. They might come to us and tell us what to do. But
well, they seem to be doing pretty good.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They say we don't have to follow you anymore. But Lee Kuan Yew, of course, is a special case. Here he is.
What are those qualities?
Well, he knew what he wanted to get done, and he did it in a small relative enclave. And he did a lot of things that we tutted about in terms of democracy, that he was a little too eager to put people in jail and to quiet down opposition and worry about what the newspaper said about him and so forth. But he had a drive to develop Singapore with a very strong civil service, very effective, corrupt-free government, as near as I could see. And he pulled it off, and he maintained a very strong position. And Singapore is Economically, I don't know where it ranks in the world by per capita income, but it's
Way up there.
very high.
Okay, so within that conversation, he referenced, I believe, China, open capitalist economies with hopes for democratic societies. At the time, of course, there was a different leader. Doesn't look like it now. And this is what Volcker said. When we get to that point of a new monetary system that the world agrees upon, will Volcker be sadly right, where the hopes for open capitalist economies and democratic societies may no longer be there, or be here as we knew it? Now, it was nice that Singapore got a mention by both men. Is Singapore perfect? No, of course not. No country is perfect. However, it is a country that does demand we be responsible to ourselves and responsible to our neighbor, and even a country that is fiscally responsible. And for a small island, it sees the bigger picture and has a government that does remain transparent and does not foster corruption. Backbone, yeah, we need it. Sadly, it may not come from central banks. It may not even come from our elected leaders. Backbone has to come from us. It's going to have to come from you. It's going to have to come from me. A spine. It starts with us and understanding what sound money is, which is why we're glad to have Ron Paul on. And again, I do hope that you take the time to watch that interview. A lot of where we are today, we need to understand what sound money is, what wealth preservation and transfer vehicles are. And that backbone involves, again, an understanding of what systemic wealth protection is and doing something about it. Otherwise, with no backbone, the Fed and governments, they're going to turn us all into wonder twins and shape us into whatever they want us to be. Being awake is one thing, getting out of bed and challenging anything the world throws our way, now that's something else. Time to saddle up and silver up. So that's my commentary there. So again, I just want to thank you guys all for being here. I know it's had a few items that maybe I should have shortened up a bit, but let me just run through some comments here. Yes, we are all dated with the Wonder Twins cartoon. I was one of those on Saturday mornings watching the Wonder Twins. So, all right, I just dated myself also. Let's see. Fat vegan. Yes, the Fed knows they are a Ponzi scheme. It's pretty sad to think that your central bank, in fact, pretty much all central banks throughout the world have some sort of alternative plan. They have some sort of I mean, they know what's going on more than we do, and the thing is, I go back to the Great Recession back in 2008, and I think it was Frank Paulson, or someone else who said we were within 2 days of the whole system melting down globally. I believe he said 2 days. The thing is, if they did not find a solution, they would never have told us. It would have just happened, and a lot of us would have really gotten hurt. So what I'm trying to say here is there are things, of course, naturally going on that we don't know about. And if they can't find a solution, they're simply not going to tell us what's going on. If they can find a solution, they're going to shapeshift us. So, you know, we don't want to be those wonder twins, right? We have to be able to take care of ourselves, take care of our family, take care of our friends. And we have to be that blessing, not that burden. It's what it's all about. And it starts in part with understanding what sound money is. So let me take a look at a few comments before we head out. Um, Brian Stewart, everything is cool. The Fed said so. All right. Okay, no worries. Everything is cool. Let's just listen to Janet and Jerome, the Wonder Twins, and they'll be straight up with us and let us know everything, right? Let's see. No, Maxa. The reserve gold is at Powell's house. Okay. No, it's not. It's at Bernanke's, according to Jack. Okay, good comment out here. That's one thing we appreciate is no matter whether we agree or disagree, it's always nice to see that you guys have some fun out there, and you know, cooler heads always prevail, and always thinking things through. Appreciate that. And again, guys who are watching who are on the fence, if it's their first time here, thanks for sticking around. But again, it's your comments that mean more than anything else. It means more than anything I can say. When they see your comments, they see their peers. What are their peers thinking? What are their peers doing? And again, that means more than anything else that I could say. So I appreciate that. So having said that, I think I'm going to have to be heading out here. Seymour Rivers. Yeah, I forgot about the one. Right. I don't know. I guess Jerome and Janet. Somehow it seems like a Saturday morning cartoon type of a theme. Jerome and Janet, or some type of band, or something. It just, I don't know. It just has a weird vibe to it, right? Jerome and Jay. I mean, yeah, Jerome and Janet. Sorry. Anyway, I'm fumbling over my words again, so that means it's time to get out of here. So once again, I do appreciate you being here, and as always, saddle up for what's coming ahead, and silver up as well. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.